The young junior sister of the immortal Sect left the sect alone in a fit of pique, but as soon as she descended the mountain, she was drugged by an elder of the Hahuan sect and locked in a dungeon to be used for yin harvesting. I was ordered to bring her meals, and she knelt on the ground, kowtowing frantically to me, begging me to take her protective jade pendant outside the sect and smash it. She promised that once her senior brothers rescued her, she would take me away from this demonic den together. I couldn't bear to see the heavens-favored daughter being humiliated and trampled upon, so I agreed to her request, but I never expected that her first act after being rescued would be to demand her senior brothers massacre the Joyous Union sect, leaving none alive. In my dying moments, I clutched desperately at the hem of her skirt, unwilling to accept my fate. She smiled with an innocence that was cruel, just a lowly mortal. Yet you received so many of my kowtows, tell me, don't you deserve to die? With that, he instantly snapped my neck. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day I brought her the meal, gazing at the warm glow of the protective jade pendant in my hand. I turned and handed it to the lecherous elder. This lifetime, let that beloved junior sect sister wallow and rot in this quagmire of lust. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. Dear sister, I beg you to save me. I'll kowtow to you. Please take this protective jade pendant and smash it outside the Joyous Union sect. My senior brothers will come rescue me then. I know you were abducted here too. You must also want to escape this filthy demon's den, don't you? Just help me with this small favor, and I swear I'll repay you 100-fold in the future. Good sister, I beg you, save me. Helpless, mournful pleas echoed in my ears. I slowly lowered my gaze, then widened my eyes in disbelief. In the dim, oppressive dungeon, a tear-streaked girl in red robes knelt pitifully on the ground, kowtowing to me repeatedly. This familiar scene, I could never forget even in death. In my past life, I was just an ordinary girl from a small mountain village, born to loving parents who lived a simple yet happy life. Father tilled the fields while mother wove cloth, until that year when I turned 10, while my parents were weeding the fields. They were suddenly strangled by a silk ribbon that snapped their necks, their bodies then reduced to ashes in raging flames. At that moment, I had just climbed a tree to pick fruit and narrowly escaped the tragedy. After my enemies flew away, I tearfully collected my parents' ashes using the family's pickle jar and buried them in the bamboo grove behind the mountain. Then I resolutely left the small village. I knew that if I wanted to find out who killed my parents and take revenge, I must learn some immortal techniques. Unexpectedly, on my way to the Great Sect, I was abducted by Elder Han of the Harmony Sect. Because I was too young and tested to have no spiritual roots, just an utterly ordinary commoner with nothing special about me, Elder Han simply tossed me a set of servant's robes and assigned me menial tasks like sweeping floors and chopping firewood. I desperately wanted to escape this place, but the Joyous Union sect was riddled with magical arrays everywhere. After witnessing several female cultivators being tortured to death during escape attempts, I had no choice but to temporarily postpone my plans to flee. In the meantime, I secretly observed various routes and locations, patiently waiting for the next opportunity to make a safe escape, until one day, Elder Han carried back another female cultivator dressed in red. The female cultivator had a pure and innocent appearance, possessed an exceptional ice spiritual root. And though her cultivation level wasn't particularly high, her physique was perfect for dual cultivation. The first thing she did upon waking was to threaten Elder Han, demanding he release her immediately. Otherwise, when her senior brother arrived, he would slaughter the entire Joyous Union sect without mercy. Elder Han sensed her background might be extraordinary, but he couldn't bring himself to give up such a high-grade cultivation cauldron that was already within his grasp. So he went all out and activated the isolation barrier, ensuring the female cultivator had no chance to send any messages outside. However, the female cultivator's temper was far too fierce. She pulled out various magical treasures from her storage pouch and attacked Elder Han. Caught off guard, Elder Han suffered quite a significant setback. Furious, he immediately sealed the red-robed female cultivator's spiritual power and forcibly fed her an extremely potent softbone pill. Intending to engage in dual cultivation with her on the night of the full moon, Perhaps it was because I had been too docile and obedient these past few years, showing no signs of threat, that Elder Han ordered me to deliver meals to her daily. But the moment I entered the dungeon, I saw her kneeling on the ground, weeping as she begged me for help. She claimed to be Kue Rui, the youngest disciple of the Xianyang sect's leader, then pressed a warm, glowing phoenix-shaped jade pendant into my hand, urging me to smash it outside the sect. Truthfully, I was somewhat reluctant. After all, I still hadn't made the slightest progress in avenging my deep-seated hatred. Moreover, the Joyous Union sect was riddled with arrays and formations everywhere. If I managed to escape successfully, that would be one thing, but if I were caught, death would be the only fate awaiting me. Yet, looking at Gui Rui's deathly pale face and her forehead bleeding from the kowtow, a trace of pity still flickered through my heart. I couldn't bear to see this fairy-like, heaven-favored girl imprisoned in this filthy dungeon, subjected to humiliation. Moreover, the Xianyang sect was one of the top major sects in the cultivation world. If I saved the sect leader's youngest disciple, perhaps I could request his help in investigating who killed my parents. Thus, seizing the right moment and risking almost certain death, I relied on the escape route I had meticulously planned over the years and managed to flee the Hehuan sect unscathed. The moment I stepped out, I smashed the jade pendant to pieces. In the blink of an eye, several powerful immortal sect disciples swiftly descended from the horizon. They forcibly breached the Joyous sect's defensive array and barely managed to rescue Kue Rui, completely disrobed, from beneath Elder Han. Kue Rui's eyes burned crimson as she hysterically demanded her senior brother's slaughter every last member of the Joyous sect. Naturally, she didn't spare me either. I was cowering in the corner, my face frozen in terror. No longer did her face wear a pitiable expression, nor was it filled with pleading or gratitude. Instead, it was now brimming with nothing but humiliation and resentment. Suddenly, a radiant silk ribbon unfurled from her sleeve, tightly coiling around my neck. The corners of her lips slowly curled into a cruel yet innocent smile. "What, did you think I'd be overflowing with gratitude and repay you tenfold? Ha, a mere lowly mortal, insignificant as an ant. Yet you've received so many kowtows from me. Tell me, don't you deserve to die?" The air in my chest rapidly drained away as I stubbornly clutched at the hem of her garment with desperate fingers. How foolish I'd been, to have believed her words so easily. Not only had I doomed myself, but I'd even helped the murderer of my parents escape their deserved suffering. That shimmering silk ribbon in her hand had become the recurring nightmare of my every sleepless night. Seeing the unwillingness and intense hatred in my eyes, Kue Rui's eyes curved into a smile. "Actually, if I hadn't killed all the people from the Joyous Union sect, you'd probably have spent your entire life living beneath those lechers. You should really be thanking me." With that, her hand tightened, and the silk ribbon instantly snapped my neck. In my lifeless pupils, her delicate figure was reflected as she pitifully ran to her senior brothers seeking comfort. I couldn't accept it. I simply couldn't. If given another chance, I'd make sure she'd find life unbearable and death impossible. Consciousness gradually faded, but to my surprise, when I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day I brought food to Kue Rui. Seeing my prolonged silence, a trace of resentment flashed deep in Kue Rui's eyes, but she quickly masked it. Kneeling on the ground, she tugged at my skirt and looked up at me with pitiful eyes. "Dear sister, my master and senior brothers all value me greatly. If you save me, you'll receive countless spiritual herbs, rare treasures enough to transform you completely and grant you a lifespan of 1,000 years. Reborn anew, a lifespan of millennia." In her previous life, the first thing she did after being rescued was slaughter everyone, and I, her savior, was personally finished off by her hand. Even the silk ribbon weapon that killed me had, 6 years prior, taken the lives of my parents. Now I loathe her to the bone, wishing only to skin her alive and tear out her sinews to appease the spirits of my deceased parents in heaven. How could I possibly help her deliver letters to escape? But I won't let her die so easily either. To kill the body is nothing, it's the heart that must be destroyed. I want her to wait in eager anticipation, only to be met not by her senior brothers coming to her rescue, but by that lecherous and terrifying Elder Han. I want her to fall into the boundless abyss, sullied and defiled beyond redemption. Didn't she say that a lowly mortal like me couldn't bear her kneeling worship? Wasn't it said that I should be weeping with gratitude because she slaughtered everyone in the Joyous Union sect? Then I'll just have to see in this lifetime where she hasn't wiped out the Joyous Union sect what different fates await her and me. Under her expectant gaze, I clenched my fists tightly, barely restraining the urge to slit Kue Rui's throat with my dagger. Then, pretending to be flustered and uneasy, I spoke with trepidation. I want to help you, but there are so many people outside. I'm scared. Don't be afraid. Seeing that I seemed to be relenting, Kue Rui immediately pressed the protective jade pendant into my palm. Rest assured, my senior brothers are all highly skilled in spiritual power and compassionate. They'll definitely keep you safe. Liar. I clearly saw a flash of malice and impatience in her eyes. In my past life, I risked my life to help her shatter the jade pendant. Yet not only was she ungrateful, she even sought to kill me because she had to kneel before me. And when she murdered me, her beloved senior brothers all stood behind her with mocking smiles, watching the spectacle, even complaining that I had dirtied her magical silk ribbon. Birds of a feather flock together. If Kue Rui is a venomous, ungrateful wolf in sheep's clothing, how much better could her doting senior brothers possibly be? They boast of being righteous immortals, but their deeds are no different from those of demonic cultivators and evil beings. I sneered inwardly, lowering my eyes. I said, fine, I'll help you, but there are many formations outside, and I have no magic power. I can't absolutely guarantee I'll get the jade pendant out. If you wait too long for rescue, it probably means I'm already dead. But don't worry, I'll definitely do my best. Having said that, I turned to leave. Wait. As expected, Kue Rui stopped me. After all, if I were to die, she would truly be left with no one to turn to. Heaven wouldn't answer her cries, nor would the earth heed her pleas. I turned around and saw her hesitant expression before she reluctantly pulled a shimmering silk ribbon from her left sleeve. This has strong defensive properties against magical attacks. Take it for protection. When Elder Han sealed her spiritual power, he had already taken her storage pouch. I figured this must be her last remaining safeguard. But now, this thing belongs to me. I gave her a half smile and sidelong glance as I took the silk ribbon, feigning delight as I said, wonderful. With this I'll surely get out safely. Wait for me, miss, I'm going now. Seeing my confident demeanor, Kue Rui visibly relaxed with an almost physical release of tension. Her expression unconsciously revealed traces of scorn and disdain, though her tone remained concerned. You're truly kind-hearted, dear sister. Do be careful on your way. Remember, the jade pendant must be shattered right outside the Joyous Union sect's gates. Kue Rui knew perfectly well she'd already alerted the enemy by her actions. Now the entire Joyous sect is filled with arrays that block all auras. If the jade pendant were shattered within these arrays, any distress signal would absolutely fail to get out. She could wait no longer. In just 3 more hours, the full moon would rise. If her senior brothers still hadn't come to rescue her by then, she would truly become that damned old man's cultivation cauldron. Take care, I'm leaving. I clenched the jade pendant tightly in my hand and swiftly departed under Kue Rui's anxious yet expectant gaze. Then, I turned and headed straight to Elder Han's courtyard, knocking on his door. At this hour, Elder Han was steadfastly cultivating, his gaunt face covered in wrinkles, wearing nothing but a grey robe. I always thought he was a strange one, clearly capable of using magic to make himself young and handsome, yet he insisted on using this decrepit appearance to defile female cultivators. What is it? The door opened automatically as Elder Han lifted his eyelids and gave me a cold glance. Normally I'd avoid him as much as possible, but today was the first time I actively sought him out. I swallowed hard, nervously cradling the jade pendant in my palms and raising it up. That female cultivator in red just now said she's a disciple of the profound Sun Sect's leader, and gave me this jade pendant, telling me to smash it outside the sect gates. I don't dare. What? Elder Han suddenly stood up, waving his hand to draw the jade pendant toward him. Upon seeing its design, the muscles on his face involuntarily twitched. This, the one I captured, is actually her. I pretended to be frightened. She must be a very formidable person. She said she's never suffered such humiliation before, and wants her senior brothers come to rescue her. They'll surely massacre the joyous Union sect, especially Elder Han, skinning you alive, crushing your soul, ensuring you never reincarnate. While fanning the flames, I secretly observed Elder Han's expression. In just a few breaths, Elder Han's face shifted from shock to fear, and finally settled into a murderous resolve of one with nothing left to lose. I know that before learning Gui Rui's true identity, Elder Han might have considered her a long-term cultivation vessel, but now, for the sake of his own life, he would never let her leave the dungeon alive, but it's also highly likely he would kill me, the only witness. Yet I must take this gamble, because I know how nearly impossible it is for a mortal to completely kill a cultivator. Moreover, I touched the magic silk ribbon hidden in my sleeve. Given how reluctant Gui Rui was to part with it, it must be a top-grade magical artifact. Keeping me alive shouldn't be a problem. Elder Han carefully placed the jade pendant into a hidden compartment, terrified of accidentally breaking it. Then, his gaze fixed on me once more. A dark glow gathered in his palm, yet instead of killing me immediately, he asked in a gloomy voice, "What do you think I should do with that female cultivator?" I dropped to my knees with a thud, trembling with fear as I replied, "She vowed to kill everyone in the Harmony Joy sect, so I believe. We must eradicate the root of the problem as soon as possible. Though the Harmony Joy sect possesses formidable restriction arrays, it's better to be safe than sorry. You must understand that Gui Rui is the disciple of the Shenyang sect's leader, with several senior brothers who dote on her deeply. It might be fine for a short while, but if she's missing for too long, the Shenyang sect will spare no effort to find her. In this cultivation world, there are far too many secret techniques. Finding someone is as easy as turning over one's hand. Though I wish for her to suffer endlessly, unable to even beg for death, it's better to kill her as soon as possible to avoid any unforeseen risks." Elder Han narrowed his eyes and studied me for a long moment before letting out an ambiguous chuckle from his throat. "Ruthless and decisive, without hesitation. You seemed quite obedient in daily life. I never realized you and I were the same kind of person." As he spoke, the black glow in his hand also faded away. I breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that this time it was secure. In Elder Han's eyes, a docile and obedient mortal could be killed at will, but a cunning and ruthless peer could be kept around for some temporary amusement, no matter what he thought. I had to finish this act. Winter has grown up in the joyful Union sect and has long regarded it as her home, so I absolutely cannot be heartless and help her destroy the sect. Quite sensible indeed. Elder Han, having committed so many wicked deeds yet surviving safely for centuries, naturally had some tricks up his sleeve. He waved his hand. "You may withdraw. I have my own plans for that woman." Although the safest course of action now would be to simply kill Gui Rui and destroy both her body and soul, yet she happens to be a top-grade cultivation cauldron. Just a few dual cultivation sessions with her would surely boost one's cultivation by leaps and bounds. It'd be such a waste to kill her outright. I could see Elder Han's inner conflict, but after all, I'm just a powerless mortal with no say in matters. So I had no choice but to obediently leave. Anyway, under Elder Han's control, Gui Rui would definitely meet a terrible end. Even if she didn't die, she'd be skinned alive, if it comes to the worst. I'll just strangle her myself with that silk ribbon. Though it might be difficult for a mere mortal like me to kill a cultivator, that ribbon is at least a magical artifact. It should be capable of killing her. Right, wait a moment. Just as I closed the wooden door, Elder Han's chilling voice suddenly came from inside the room. "Come, accompany me to see that woman." I couldn't understand why Elder Han had suddenly changed his mind, but I could only obediently respond, "Yes, in my previous life." Because of my interference, the completely unaware Elder Han was utterly destroyed by Gui Rui's senior brothers. In this lifetime, with my warning, he naturally began to take this matter seriously. In the dungeon, he looked at the curled-up Gui Rui, gripping her neck with one hand and lifting her up. With his other hand, he gently stroked her smooth cheek. "So you're the famous little junior sister of the Shenyang sect." Seeing me standing expressionless behind Elder Han, Gui Rui instantly understood what was going on. Her bloodshot eyes glared at me with malice, looking as if she wanted to tear me to pieces. "Bitch, you lowly mortal, how dare you betray me? Yes, what can you do about it?" Seeing Gui Rui's furious expression with gnashing teeth, I tilted my head innocently. Betrayal, how amusing, young lady. I've always been a disciple of the Joyous Union sect. Why would I help outsiders harm my own sect? Moreover, as I spoke, I gave her disheveled appearance a once-over and sneered, moreover, you're nothing but a lying swindler. To escape this place, you even had the audacity to falsely claim you're a disciple of the Profound Sun sect's leader. I'm not a liar. My master truly is the sect leader of Shenyang sect. Kue Rui roared in frustration. I shrugged and spread my hands. Oh, and I should just take your word for it. She'd clearly been spoiled rotten by her master and senior brothers, even in this situation. Instead of showing any humility, her face twisted with vicious arrogance as she began shouting threats. I warn you, release me immediately. Once I get out, I'll have my senior brothers slaughter everyone in the Hahuan sect. We'll slice you into 1,000 pieces and roast your souls with yang fire until you beg for death that never comes. I couldn't help but chuckle when I saw her, despite being choked by Elder Han, still having the courage to shout those words. Elder Han had already wanted to kill her, and now with her provocation and threats, I was absolutely certain that not even a trace of her soul would remain. It seems my betrayal and deliberate provocation had successfully made her lose her composure. This was exactly what I wanted. Perhaps provoked by my laughter, Gui Rui suddenly snapped back to reality, belatedly realizing the foolish words she had just uttered, her face instantly turning pale, but soon. She cautiously tugged at Elder Han's sleeve, on the verge of tears, and said, "Esteemed Elder, the words I just spoke were nonsense. If you let me go, I swear I will repay you handsomely and gratefully when I return." Yet how could such clumsy acting deceive the cunning and ruthless Elder Han? Elder Han responded with a cold laugh, flinging her to the ground. Had you been a disciple of any other sect leader, I might have hesitated and let you go, but since you're a disciple of the Shenyang sect's leader, I regret to inform you you're doomed. Upon hearing this, Gui Rui widened her eyes in terror and disbelief, stammering, why should I?" Elder Han snorted coldly. "Everyone knows you're the Shenyang sect's precious darling, their untouchable reverse scale. Your senior sister merely accidentally injured you during the sect's martial competition, yet she was punished with 100 demonic lashes. Later, they even dug out her ice spirit root and gave it to you, reducing her to a complete cripple. If you could be so ruthless to your own sect sister, how could I possibly survive if I foolishly let you go?" Gui Rui was momentarily speechless, unable to utter a word in rebuttal. She never expected that her mere desire to show off how much her master and senior brother cherished her would end up severing her only path of retreat. In the end, she could only shake her head frantically. "No, it's not like this. It was that lowly woman. No. It was the senior sister who willingly gave it to me." Seeing her utterly distraught state, I knew Elder Han's words were indeed true. In an instant, everything became clear. No wonder she possessed an exceptional ice spiritual root yet had pitifully low cultivation. Her fighting techniques were all flashy moves too, just randomly throwing magical treasures pulled from her storage pouch. Turns out, she had gouged out her senior sister's exceptional ice spiritual root and transplanted it into herself. TSK. That makes her even more deserving of death. Elder Han couldn't be bothered to waste more words on her. Gripping her chin, he prepared to force-feed her a crimson pill. Kue Rui was no fool. She knew this pill couldn't be anything good. Struggling with all her might, she broke free and scrambled desperately toward the corner on hands and knees. Alas! The next instant Elder Han blocked her path. "What are you doing? Get away. I won't take it." Elder Han's voice was hoarse. "Don't worry, just some little entertainment." Gui Rui was already no match for Elder Han, and now with her spiritual power sealed, she could only watch helplessly as Elder Han forced the red pill into her mouth and made her swallow it. The moment the pill went down, her body went limp and she collapsed to the ground, her eyes filled with hatred. Glaring at me with deadly intensity, I frowned. I didn't understand. I was utterly shocked. Wait, why am I the one she hates the most? Sure, I did betray and trick her, but it was Elder Han who abducted her, sealed her spiritual power, forced pills down her throat, and soon it'll also be Elder Han who violates her. So why doesn't she hate Elder Han? I thought about it. This must be the classic case of bullying the weak and fearing the strong. compared to a ruthless and vicious heretic cultivator. An ordinary mortal like me is clearly much easier to bully. After all, if she vents her hatred on me, the most I can do is get angry and then stay angry. But if she provoked Elder Han, she would only be tortured more severely and injured more grievously. Before long, Kue Rui's face turned crimson. Her body tightly curled up as she sobbed softly in distress. Without turning his head, Elder Han said, "You, get out." Kue Rui suddenly raised her head, looking at me with fearful pleading. "No, don't go. Save me." She knew full well the horrors that awaited her, yet I turned a blind eye, murmuring softly, "Yes, Winter Child takes her leave." With these words, the corners of her lips curled into a vindictive smile as she turned away without hesitation. In the dungeon, the puppet core pinned beneath Elder Han's weight screamed incessantly to my ears. This sound was the most exquisite music in all the world, in my past life. My naive kindness overflowed. I risked my life to deliver her desperate plea for help, barely managing to preserve her innocence and life. Yet only at death's door did I discover she was the true murderer who had slain my parents. Even more tragic, all 3 of my family members met gruesome deaths at her hands. So this wicked woman didn't deserve my salvation. She belongs in hell for eternity, never to rise again. For several days in a row, Elder Han remained in the dungeon without coming out. I wisely refrained from disturbing him further. Instead, I actively moved around the sect, gathering bits of information about the outside world from the idle chatter of the Harmony Sect disciples. After all, Gui Rui's senior brothers were not to be trifled with. They could crush ordinary people into pulp with just a flick of their fingers, so I had to be prepared to flee at any moment. Elder Han, that lecherous scoundrel, got what he deserved, but I sure as hell don't want to die inexplicably for the Pleasure Sect's sake. As for the lives of others, they have nothing to do with me. After all, I'm just an ordinary person, and keeping myself alive is already quite an achievement. In the dining hall, I diligently cleaned the tables, but my attention was completely drawn to the gossip between 2 people in the corner. A disciple in pink robes fanned himself with a folding fan and sighed. "You know, the elders of the Shenyang sect must be getting senile. They're throwing away a genuine pearl and instead treating a fish eye like a treasure." The man across from him was eating voraciously and asked indistinctly, "What do you mean?" The man in pink sneered, "Do you know Shen Qingshuang, that exceptionally talented head disciple of the Shenyang sect's leader? Once such a dazzling and proud beauty, now she's been reduced to a cripple with shattered meridians and blinded eyes, utterly worthless. Fair game for anyone's abuse." Those junior disciples she painstakingly raised, to vent their anger for the little junior sister who ran away from the sect. They've hung Shen Qingshuang over the endless abyss for 2 days and nights. They say they'll only let her down when the little sister returns in a better mood. TSK, what a pitiful creature. No way, the endless abyss is filled with baleful energy. Last time I lingered near it for just a short while and felt awful. Hanging someone there for 2 days and nights. Are they trying to kill Shen Qingshuang? The man across widened his eyes in shock. How ruthless. Their discussion continued, but my heart was pounding wildly. If I'm not mistaken, the Shen Qingshuang they mentioned must be the senior sister whose ice spiritual root was dug out by Kue Rui. For some reason, a strong thought suddenly arose in my heart. I want to save her, yet I'm just a mortal, unsure if I can withstand the baleful aura they spoke of. So I began delivering meals to the dungeon. On my first visit, I saw Gui Rui lying supine on the stone bed, covered only by a thin gauze. There was scarcely an unblemished patch of skin on her body. Her arms were twisted at unnatural angles, and her swollen cheeks were streaked with tears. I couldn't tell if it was my imagination, but she seemed to have aged over a decade, her eyes dull and unfocused. Elder Han sat cross-legged nearby in meditation, his expression brimming with satiation and excitement. Seeing me arrive uninvited, his brows furrowed tightly. "Who allowed you in? Get out." I took a nervous step back, lifting the lunchbox in my hand. I came to bring her food, afraid she might starve. Not needed. Scram. Yes, I retreated awkwardly. The second time, I fetched a bucket of water, saying I wanted to wash Gui Rui. Elder Han, in the midst of his excitement, struck me with a dark beam, sending me flying. Then immediately set up a defensive formation at the dungeon entrance. It took me quite a while to get up from the ground before I hurried back to my little bamboo hut. I untied my outer robe, revealing the silk ribbons wrapped around my upper body. Despite Elder Han's strike, I was completely unharmed, not even feeling the slightest discomfort. This is truly a top-notch magical treasure, having formed a plan in my mind. That very night I took advantage of the lax vigilance of the night patrol disciples and escaped the sect following the route from my previous life. I've personally witnessed Kue Rui's tragic fate. She's now in a state where she can neither live nor die. Moreover, Elder Han has already gone this far and knows she's the most beloved junior sister of the Shenyang sect, so he definitely won't allow her any possibility of survival. At this moment, I naturally had to make plans for myself. The fact that Kue Rui's senior brothers had hung Shen Qingfrost on the endless cliff meant they'd already realized they couldn't contact Kue Rui. Right now, they might still think their junior sister was throwing a tantrum and deliberately hiding from them, but in a few more days, they would certainly notice something was wrong. The current joyous sect is extremely dangerous for me. 3 days later, I disguised myself as an inconspicuous little beggar by gathering gossip along the way. I successfully arrived at the endless abyss. There, I also met that head disciple of the profound Sun Sect's leader, Shenqing Shuang. The desolate and eerie cliff was empty, save for a frail, solitary figure hanging from a tree branch by a rough hemp rope. Her green robes were thoroughly soaked in blood, with gruesome wounds at her wrists and ankles. Were it not for the faint rise and fall of her chest, I would have thought her already dead, seeing her battered and bruised body. My heart involuntarily clenched. It must have been excruciatingly painful. Fortunately, these past few years at the Joyous Union sect, I had been doing hard labor, building up considerable strength. Thus, I managed to rescue her without too much trouble. Before I could even catch my breath, a furious roar suddenly came from behind. "How dare you? Who allowed you to take her down?" My heart trembled, and I quickly turned to look. A strikingly handsome youth was glaring at me with a dark expression. His long sword thrusting toward me without hesitation. Overwhelmed by the murderous aura flooding the air, my face instantly turned deathly pale. Just as I thought I was about to die, Shen Qingshuang in my arms, who had somehow awakened, wrapped her arms tightly around my waist and threw us both off the cliff. My body plummeted rapidly through utter darkness, and in that moment, I was filled with bitter regret. Damn this bleeding heart of mine, how many deaths will it take to cure it? Before losing consciousness, I faintly heard an extremely weak voice whisper by my ear, "Don't be afraid," followed by a heart-wrenching scream from above, "Senior sister." When I opened my eyes again, I found myself inside a mountain cave. The campfire burned beside me, yet Shen Qingxue was nowhere to be seen. I cautiously approached the cave entrance. The landscape outside was desolate and ruined, with nothing but dark crimson as far as the eye could see. The howling wind carried endless screams and wails. At the heart of the storm not far away, Shen Qingxue sat cross-legged. Visible streams of crimson-black energy surged wildly into her body. Only after watching for some time did I realize she might be cultivating, and indeed it was. It wasn't until much later that Shen Qingshuang returned to the cave. Her wounds had completely healed. Though her face remained deathly pale, she still wore the same tattered, blood-stained robe. Her hair tied up with a simple wooden hairpin. The only difference was the sinister aura now swirling around her. Though her eyes were covered with black cloth, she could still accurately locate my position. Gently rubbing my head, she whispered bitterly, "I'm sorry, it's my fault your family suffered." "What do you mean?" I looked at her in confusion. Back then, Kue Rui, my junior sister, slipped me the spirit-dissipating powder. After I lost all my spiritual power, she abandoned me in a beggar's den. If your parents hadn't happened to pass by and rescued me, I probably would have. At this point, she paused before continuing, "Because I survived, Kue Rui grew to resent your parents. When I was severely injured and imprisoned in the forbidden grounds, she came to gloat about how she had killed my saviors, how she had burned them to ashes." Hearing these words, my chest tightened until I could barely breathe. So, the reason Kue Rui killed my parents was simply because they ruined her scheme to frame Shen Qingshuang. But, how did you know it was my parents? In my memory, I've never even met her before. It's this. Shen Qingshuang pointed at the red jade hanging around my neck. This was what I gave to your parents. It can withstand a full-force strike from a nascent soul cultivator. I thought I could protect them. I was too useless. My heart suddenly trembled. Vaguely recalling a childhood memory of my mother fastening a warm jade pendant around my neck while I slept soundly, she kept murmuring blessings of long life and protection from evil spirits. So it turns out, our family's fate had already been written at that very moment. Thank goodness. This time I managed to protect you. Otherwise, I wouldn't know how to face your parents in the afterlife. As I was processing this overwhelming information, Shen Qingfeng suddenly pulled me into a tight embrace. Wait for me. When I become strong enough, we'll go out and seek revenge. Her body trembled slightly, as if in extreme pain, my eyes stung with unshed tears. Okay, I know my parents' death wasn't Shen Qingxuang's fault. My kind-hearted parents would have rushed to help anyone in need at that time. The blame lies solely with that madwoman Kuei Rui. When her poisonous scheme failed, she actually slaughtered defenseless mortals. What kind of righteous immortal sect is this? In my heart, my hatred for Kuei Rui grew even deeper. For the entire next year, Shen Qingxuang spent almost every waking moment absorbing the sinister energy, only occasionally bringing me some fruits and game. I didn't know how she cultivated without a spiritual root, but I could sense her growing power, a presence increasing hard.
And also, Sister Qingxuang said with a light laugh, I gave the sect leader 1,000 demonic lashes and gouged out both his eyes. Ah, I gasped aloud. Sister Qingxuang froze momentarily, then hesitantly said, Donga. Do you think my methods were cruel? But I didn't kill them, I merely gave them a taste of their own medicine. No, no, no. I quickly waved my hands, exclaiming excitedly, Sister Qingxuang, you're just too cool and amazing. I totally admire you. This approach is absolutely brilliant. Killing them would only grant them release, while crippling them is the ultimate revenge. The immense disparity in strength and status will make them suffer unbearably day and night, yet powerless to change it. For those who were once heaven's favored ones, this is undoubtedly the most fatal blow. Shen Qingxuang froze for a moment before bursting into laughter. Thank you, Donga. By the way, I've brought someone with me. I think it's best left to your judgment. With a wave of his hand, a disfigured woman suddenly thudded to the ground. I focused my gaze and saw it was indeed Kuei Rui. Now she was in tattered clothes, struggling on the ground with disheveled hair, looking much older. Having long lost the haughty and lively demeanor she had when I first met her, she truly hadn't died, but judging by her current state, it seemed her days after being rescued hadn't been much better. When she recognized me, a sudden intense hatred flashed in her eyes. Bitch, it's all your fault. I narrowed my eyes in displeasure, then delivered a vicious kick to her chest. Her face instantly turned deathly pale, unable to even cry out in pain. Let me think, should I throw you into a beggar's den, or send you straight to the underworld? I pulled out a shimmering silk ribbon from my sleeve and dangled it before her eyes. This very thing killed my parents and me in my past life. No, spare me, I admit my wrongs, we have no feud, please let me live. Kuei Rui's eyes brimmed with terror as she hastily switched to begging for mercy. Ignoring the pain in her body, she knelt on the ground and began kowtowing with loud, resounding thuds. In a way, I actually admire her. Her will to survive is truly formidable. She herself has become a cripple, and the beloved senior brother who doted on her is either crippled or maimed. Deep down, she must know I'll never spare her, yet for that sliver of a chance to live, she still begs so pitifully. Too bad, I want her dead. In her terrified gaze, I wound her most cherished silk ribbon around her neck, loop by loop, then I pulled tight with both hands. Feeling the strength of her struggles grow weaker until she moved no more, the suffocating resentment that had weighed on my heart for years suddenly lifted. Father, mother, your daughter has avenged you. May your souls rest in peace now. After resolving everything, Sister Qingxuang took my hand and led me away from the small bamboo hut. On the path, she suddenly stopped and looked at me with solemn seriousness. Little Donga, do you wish to become a cultivator? My eyes brightened momentarily before dimming again as I replied bitterly, I have no spiritual roots, not a single trace. No one doesn't yearn for formidable cultivation or the ability to soar through skies and traverse earth. Yet alas, I am but an ordinary mortal woman, common beyond common. Look. What's this? Shen Qingxuang suddenly produced a box and opened it. Wisps of cold air emanating from within, I exclaimed in surprise, your supreme ice spirit root, Shen Qingxuang nodded. I dug it out from Kuei Rui's body. This originally belonged to me. It's just that my current constitution has already been altered by the baleful energy, making me unable to practice ice-based spells anymore. I was thinking of transplanting it into your body. What? Did I hear that correctly? So you mean, I'll be able to cultivate from now on? I could fly through the skies, ride swords, and roam freely. My little heart started pounding wildly again. Little Donga, I don't want to watch you grow old and die before my eyes decades from now. Will you stay by your sister's side forever? Shen Qingshuang's eyes were filled with anguish. She had lost too much in this lifetime and suffered too many wounds. This time, she wanted to keep the most important person by her side, but after becoming a cultivator, you'll face monotonous daily training, perilous struggles, you'll be far removed from peaceful, tranquil days. I threw myself into Qingshuang's embrace and planted a loud kiss on her flawless, breathtakingly beautiful face. I'm not afraid, from now on, we sisters will stay together always. Traveling across the cultivation continent, tasting all the delicacies the world has to offer, this time, we'll both live well and prosper. The end.